good afternoon. It's a big honor for me to moderate this panel, which is also the last part of our conference. And first of all, I have to apologize to Sanu Marakian and Taibeka Tujan. And so, by chance, we are a ladies panel. And it's quite interesting because I think that's a kind of statement to hear. Yes, first of all, I want to introduce shortly my colleagues here. So we have Leila Strobel. She is from the Austrian Blue Shield. And she's still the General Secretary, and she's also, I think, the head of the Röhrig Society in Austria. So she has years of expertise in cultural heritage, conservation, protection, and in peace building. And she will later give us some ideas about Blue Shield. The next guest is Virginia Davis from the USA, but actually born in Canada, in Toronto. And her biography is really very difficult. She's very busy in a lot of things like laws, banking, NGOs work, creating new NGOs, and she has also founded a very important organization which is called Save Armenian Monuments. So she will talk about this. And then we have a stakeholder, a national stakeholder of two very important organizations. This is Ani Avakian. She's a cultural manager and she's also working in museum education, and she founded her own center dedicated to the cultural heritage of Armenia, and she also used to be the president of ICOM Armenia. So we four ladies will now try to give you an impression about the work that's been done, or which is going to be done perhaps together. And first of all, I would invite you to represent, to introduce your organization to the public. Please, Leila, would you please start?
Yes, Yasmin, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and it's an honor to be invited to such an interesting conference. To represent here two organizations, Austrian National Committee of the Röhrig Pact and Austrian National Committee of the Blue Shield. And I think I will talk now a little bit about the Blue Shield Committee, because I think this organization is quite relevant to the Armenian situation. So our main kind of slogan of our organization is protecting culture in crisis, and it's indeed organization, Austrian National Committee of the Blue Shield, organization who consists of people who care about protecting cultural heritage, natural heritage, tangible and intangible, in times of crisis affected by the armed conflicts or human-made and natural disasters. So this is our kind of main area of work. And in the end of the day, we're analyzing the situation. We are providing kind of the first information about what's going on. So we kind of analytic monitoring organization. And this information goes then to 4 other organizations who are, in the end of the day, kind of our founders, because Blue Shield International was founded of them, and it is an International Council of Museum, International Council of Archives, International Foundation for Libraries, and of course UNESCO. And according to the information which we collected in the case of disaster management and risk analysis, we provided to those organizations. On the one hand, on another hand, we cooperate with military of Austria and other nations with whom we come into cooperation in Austrian and external and internal operations, military operations. We cooperate with various NGOs, governmental organizations, who kind of specialize themselves in the cultural heritage protection and train the experts.
Thank you, Sheila. May I ask you now, Virginia?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Virginia Davies, and I'm the founder of Armenian Monuments. But there's a wonderful and illustrious group behind me. One is Rafi Tanelian, who is in the audience and has attended today. And the others you've heard from throughout the conference. Simone, Christine Moranci, Hegnar, they're all on our advisory council. So it would be remiss of me not to mention who actually makes up Save Armenian Monuments. Save Armenian Monuments was born out of tears. Rafi and I went to a church that I had restored, St. Minos in Hak Village, just after the war, before those lands were turned over to the Azeris. I had restored that church and been going to that church, attending baptisms, giving for the school and the water to the village for about 10 years. In a sense, it had become my home away from home. And when I heard that the land was going to be turned over, the church was going to be gone, I said I needed to go. And happily, Rafi came with me, and we conducted a service. As we drove back, we said, well, we're realists, but we need to do something. And the something is, Save Armenian Monuments came out of that need to do something. The truth is that there are many wonderful, enormously talented, enormously expert Armenians and Armenian groups working in this space. But as business people, which Rafi and I are, we also know that there are times when it's very siloed and the various groups and government actors and near government actors don't speak with each other. And Save Armenian Monuments, the principal goal of Save Armenian Monuments is to be connective tissue, to see when something isn't working well or could work better and figure out a way to help it do its job better so that our monuments remain in some form so that we can continue as a people to worship in them. We believe very firmly that the preservation of our monuments is an important aspect of post-conflict resolution in this geographic area, and as this geographic area goes through tremendous transition. So, for example, we have kind of our fingers in many pots, whether it's making puzzles for the various church schools so that children, and that was mentioned today in one of the speeches, make sure that people know about your monuments in advance, not just when you lose them. We have an active educational program that's being rolled out in the United States and Canada, which includes puzzles and games for children so that they can learn particularly about the monuments and about Artsakh itself. That includes helping with PR. That includes, I am a lawyer, that includes where we can, making sure that the necessary legal resources, if we can, and we work hard with the American Bar Association, any way that we can help in that, if there are translation services. So we look to partner, we look to bring together and help lever what already exists and fill in white space. Where we see that there's a gap, we'll fill it. So that's what Save Armenian Monuments is about.
Thank you very much, Virginia. So, Ani, may I ask you to introduce your two organizations?
Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting. It has been an honor to be here having the opportunity to talk about the institutions that I represent and the work that we have done for the cultural heritage during... Okay, can you hear me now better? Okay. So I was just saying that it has been an honor to be here, to have this opportunity to speak about the institutions that I represent and the work that had been done during the war and in general.
I'm the director of Regional Office for Cultural Heritage Enhancement, Protection and Management that has been initiated as an intergovernmental partnership between Armenia and Italy. The project was developed by the Ministry of Education, Science, Culture and Sports of Armenia and the Bologna University. It happened that the project was being implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic, and afterwards we were struck by the war. At the same time, I was chairing ICOM Armenia, that was over in July of this year. I've passed the leadership to Haik Mkrtchyan, that is unfortunately not here now, but the main work was implemented between October, November of last year during the war. Actually, we have been really active in trying to reach the voices about the destruction and the possible looting and demolishing of Armenian cultural heritage on the territory where the war activities were happening at that moment. The first statement that was published by ICOM Armenia about the museums in Artsakh, because before the war we had 22 museums on the territory of Artsakh. Now we have lost 12 of them. About 20,000 movable cultural heritage is left in those museums. Afterwards, there were several statements that really contributed a lot in the later statements that came by UNESCO, by ICOM, ICOMOS, World Monuments Organization and other international institutions and initiatives. But the time showed that unfortunately the statements are useless. I think we need to change our strategy from talking to acting. And in fact, after the war, we tried to find different canals to try to return the collections, museum collections that are still in the hands of occupied troops, Azerbaijan. And unfortunately, we have no information about the fate of these collections. The last attempt that was from our side was to contact, after we understood that UNESCO is useless and the real activities are impossible, at least in the near future, we tried to work with our Russian colleagues, ICOM Russia, and unfortunately, till now, there are no practical results of that. So what is my saying and the activities that we have developed is that we really need together with the international and national, regional communities concerned about the cultural heritage, regardless its origin, its religious origin, its national origin. We all know that the memory of humanity is in the cultural heritage. So we need to find together strategies to go to more practical activities, because the question is really complex. It concerns the nationalistic, social, economical, political reasons. And our center is the Regional Office for Cultural Heritage, Rockcamp Center, is doing research on various aspects for the protection of the cultural heritage, starting from the education. The thing that you have mentioned is really a crucial thing of the local people, local communities living around the monuments, because the monuments and cultural heritage is under danger not only because of the war conflicts, but also because of the not knowledgeable cultural communities, local communities living around the cultural heritage. Very often they destroy them themselves because of the lack of knowledge, information, and the importance about the cultural heritage they own. So our center is doing research on various ways, starting from the legislative framework, that is really very important for the protection of cultural heritage, as movable, so immovable, till education of professionals, local communities, and so on. We are looking into all possible ways of protecting cultural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. So I had such a lot of questions here, you can see, but we don't have enough time, and there are so many questions. I think we are still looking for answers, but perhaps you can help me to find some answers. Annie, I will come back to one of your sentences you said, and this is also quite important for me, because cultural heritage in general only becomes cultural heritage when it becomes recognizable with a particular set of cultural and social values. So it's the community itself that defines what is their cultural heritage. So what do you think is the actual state of the identification of the broad Armenian society, say here in Armenia, but also in the diaspora, with this cultural heritage in Artsakh? What do you think?
I think this question could be answered with a separate conference. It's a broad question, in fact, and it needs investigation, because due to the political, historical, economical circumstances, Armenian nation has always been forced to be in exile. And when you are in an exile, there is a big danger to lose your heritage, starting from the language you speak in and so on. Plus to that, 70 years of Soviet occupation, let's say, that moved Armenian people around eastern Armenia, both Artsakh and Armenia, far from their roots. On this background, I can say that we really have a need of recognition of our own cultural heritage, and that should be done through education. Mm-hmm. Education at school, education at home, informal education in the museums, around the monuments, that should be organized as a core in the state policy for cultural heritage that doesn't exist in general.
If I might add, one
Yes.
of the things that Save Armenian Monuments is doing is, and we have started this, are in the process of starting, is that we are doing what we call community archaeology. So one of the issues is that we've all spent a lot of time the last 2 days talking about what we've lost, but we must remember what we still have, and we need to look after it. And Save Armenian Monuments is going into the villages of the part of the territories that we still have, and giving education to the community, to the villagers, and paying them, because I'm a businessman, a business person, and we have a saying, pay peanuts, get monkeys. We want people to be committed to this and learn from this and look after it, and learn to love the sites, find ways, which was also spoken about in the last presentation, to integrate it into their life, because the church should be integrated. It's not just someplace you go on occasion. And helping the villagers learn about the monument that is in their village and to look after it. This can be done right now, and it can be done by, quite frankly, raising money and helping get people out there to train them. Let's work to save what we've got, as well as worry about what we've lost.
Exactly. Totally agree.
I completely agree with both of you. This is one of the civic ways to raise awareness and to educate people also. So coming back to another point, usually the destruction of cultural property has also been framed as a security concern. And it was noted such an act constitutes a global and unprecedented threat to international peace and security. So many organizations and institutions focusing on cultural heritage lack competence and capacity on conflict and security management. which brings us closer to another question of whether the protection of cultural property should also be a military matter. On the other hand, we have seen that the mere presence of the Russian peacekeepers in Shushi did not save Khasanjy-Sots Cathedral from a strange way of having it restored. So I know, being myself a member of Blue Shield Austria, that Blue Shield cooperates with military custody, UN peacekeeping, and other local armed forces in its various national committees. So, Laila, can you please explain us how do we understand this cooperation and the deployment of the military in the protection of cultural property?
Yes, because actually it's incorporated in the Hague Convention 1954. Because this is incorporated into the Hague Convention 1954 and its two protocols, which stipulates that in case of the armed conflict, the civilians cannot really much help and military forces have to be involved. And in this regard, I would like to introduce to you an Austrian model because it's one of the first model in the world how cultural heritage is protected by the military forces. So in 1980s, Austria ordered the first kind of military order for the armed forces to protect cultural heritage because they were bound by the Hague Convention and they introduced this Hague Convention into the national legal body. And according to this requirement, so they tried to introduce the rules of international humanitarian law within the national law and within the work and operations of the military troops. Later on, some guidelines were created and drawn up, and those guidelines were kind of a basis document for creation a special military protective corps for cultural heritage protection, which advised to the general stab of the military as well as to the local military coordination points. And of course, in the military academies and military staff is obliged to learn about international humanitarian law and to know all these rules because according to the Hague Convention and its second protocol, as far as I know, Austria, Azerbaijan, Armenia signed this protocol. It's kind of true for these countries. Every individual military has an individual criminal disciplinary responsibility for lawful acts towards the cultural heritage. So this is the kind of Austrian model, but it's not only military model, it's civil military cooperation because in case of armed conflicts, natural or man-made disasters, the military cooperate with the local authorities, with the local experts, and both of the sides sometimes do not understand each other because the goals of the military is different from the goals of the civil organizations. So there is a special part of these guidelines for civil military cooperation where the both kind of alliance meet together, train together, exercise together, talk together, create a special language which help them then in times of crisis to act very fast and in the proper way. And Austria have its Blue Shield map. So if you look at that Blue Shield map, you will see exact territories which are protected by the international humanitarian law and no armed exercises or activities to take place in these places. It's I would say it's a kind of peace provided by protecting culture. This is the Austrian model, and it's now spreading around the globe. I know that many countries take over this model and try to incorporate in their national military forces. And in the same time, we are also invited due to our experience to cooperate with the UN peacekeepers. And in particular, the last cooperation was in Lebanon. Some years ago, we started a training and exercises together with the Lebanese army, UN peacekeepers, because a big contingent of these peacekeepers are located not far away from Beirut, and it was kind of preliminary risk management, because we know that Middle East, perhaps something might happen, that the peacekeepers are not without reason there. So we started this kind of preparation, preliminary work, preventive work, and fortunately, on the 5th of August 2020, one day after the blasts in Beirut, the Blue Shield Beirut, Blue Shield Austria, Blue Shield International, UN peacekeepers, as well as Lebanese army were able to safeguard the center, the cultural center of Lebanon, which actually suffered dramatically after this blast. About 30 cultural institutions, museums, and libraries were without doors, roofs, windows. So the first 3 months, Blue Shield Network were providing the first aid, so to say, help. And as you can see, the preventive work, the training is quite crucial for momentum in case if something happened, that experts are here and they can conduct their work in the proper way as soon as possible.
Thank you, Leila. Ani, I have a very short question for you. We have heard today about, and you've also already mentioned, the museums we still have in Artsakh. So I know that some of the exhibits were brought to Armenia, but still a lot of exhibits are in Artsakh, now under Azerbaijani control. Do you know anything about looting or a kind of black market? Is something like this existing, or are there any reports?
This was one of our concerns when we made the first statement, and there is stated that we invite the close attention of Interpol and ICOM on the looting possibilities. But till now, we don't have any official information about the location of the collections that were in Shushi museums and Hadrut museums, and there is also a village Toch where we left castle, a Prince Castle with a museum. And the only information is that the sculpture park was destroyed in August because of the Google photos we know, and the Monument Watch has published information about that. You know, the case is that, in fact, we don't think that the museum could, I mean, there is a big possibility that these museum collections could be looted, and we suggested ICOM to create a red list for that and to share this information with Interpol and all border customs offices. But the problem is that the old documents with the collections of the collections remained in Shushi and in Hadrut. I mean, nothing was evacuated. So I would like to really stress on what you have been also talking about. The training of staff is really a security, the first security for the collections, for the cultural heritage in general. And we are now developing a training course for museum and cultural heritage experts with ICROM for the disaster risk management to further prevent losing of collections because of the professional knowledge is not there to act. But in general, to tell you that people, especially in Shushi, when I talk to the directors and professionals working in the museums there, they say that we had no idea that Şuşi will fall. There were people who moved their goods from Martakert, from other regions to Şuşi, thinking that those will be saved. I know that there is an initiative to evacuate the collections from Şuşi after 8th of October, but the museum professionals insisted saying that this is the safest place to keep the collections. So this is really a crucial thing to tell museum professionals, the cultural heritage professionals, when and how they should act.
Yes.
Because just knowing that Şuşi has a good location, has a protected location, doesn't mean that the collections and cultural heritage is in safety. I must say that the collections in Yerevan were already evacuated. There was no arms activity, but the national museums have already packed and evacuated their major collections, which didn't happen in an area where the active war activities were going on. So this is really important, and I think that we need to train all cultural heritage professionals, regardless the movable, immovable, and also to set up the certain really military protection system in partnership with the state, with the relevant institutions responsible for the safeguard and protection of cultural heritage, with the church and cultural institutions, to really establish this system of military protection. Last year we had an attempt to invite the Carabinieri, the Italian system of safeguarding the cultural heritage, but the COVID pandemic struck, and the conference was planned in March, so we couldn't have this meeting, but it's still in the curriculum, and I know that the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science has started some debates, negotiations with the other institutions, state institutions, military, police institutions for the need of this kind of system. So I think we need to more develop this issue to prevent the further looting and so on. But till now, I mean, it's fortunate on some point that we don't have any information about the looting, but on the other hand, we are really suffering from the lack of information about the fate of these collections. Knowing Azeri policy of destruction, anything about Armenian and Armenian culture.
Thank you, Ani. So you see, unfortunately, we are running out of time. But as a matter of fact, you see that there's one point which is really absolutely important for cultural heritage protection. This is education, training. And I think this is a point where we can start to cooperate, national NGOs and international NGOs. And I think we will start it right after we get back home. Isn't it so, Sheila? Yes. Leila? Yeah. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to stop the panel. Thank you very much again. And I can just tell you we will have another, but this is just a closed stakeholders meeting tomorrow with the most important Armenian stakeholders, and Virginia will also be with us, and other representatives of international stakeholders, and we will also let you know the outcome of this discussion. Thank you very much.